All right, welcome to our deep dive into spiritual growth apps in 2025. So, I don't know about you, but man, there are just so many out there now.
It can be a little overwhelming. You're absolutely right.
It really can. So, like trying to sift through, I don't know, a million grains of sand.
Yeah.
But that's what we're here for. We're going to explore 10 that we found particularly interesting, ready to upgrade that spiritual toolkit.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so, there's always this fascination with personality, like figuring ourselves out.
Of course, yeah.
And there's an app, it's called Spiritual Personality Tests. And what I found really interesting about this one is it kind of brings in psychology and philosophy.
It tries to create a kind of holistic view.
It does. And they've got these tests. I mean, you got the spiritual awakening test. There's a positive karma and spiritual warfare test. Like, whoa, this is getting intense.
They're definitely attention-grabbing titles, but, at their core, they're really about trying to pinpoint your character traits, maybe how emotionally intelligent you are, where you are in your spiritual journey.
Do you think people put a lot of stock into these results?
Well, I think it depends, right? Some people might just take them for fun, but others might, use them as a starting point for reflection, or maybe even, as a nudge to explore a new path.
Okay, I see what you mean. So it's kind of like that initial, that first step into looking inward.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's move into something I think everybody is probably already familiar with, which is guided meditation and mindfulness. It seems like, meditation is everywhere these days.
It really is, and there are so many apps catering to that need for, well, I guess a little more peace and quiet.
Yeah.
One that stood out to me is guided spiritual meditation. And this one's interesting because it really delves into these ancient philosophical traditions. They have traditional guided meditations, but they also use spiritual narratives.
Ooh, spiritual narratives. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's like a story that takes you on a journey.
I like that. And of course, we have to mention the big names, right?
Right, the ones that kind of pave the way.
Exactly. Calm and Headspace. Everybody probably knows those. Calm is really pretty. I mean, it's got all those nature scenes and the daily calm.
Yeah, their visuals are stunning. And Headspace is great for beginners. I love those little animations.
It makes it less intimidating, right?
Definitely.
Okay, now back to guided spiritual meditation for a second. What I thought was kind of different about that one is it seems less about just relaxation and more about, like, finding deeper meaning.
Yeah, it's more about introspection, maybe contemplating ethics and morality, connecting to something beyond the self.
Okay, so there's like a purpose behind it.
Exactly.
I can see why that appeals to some people. All right, so ready for some unique features.
Always.
Okay, we found a few apps that are doing things a little differently. So there's Insight Timer, and this one's like a meditation library.
Massive library, yeah.
It is a global hub, really.
And the best part is it's got a huge amount of content for free. From teachers all over the world across all kinds of traditions.
Like a meditation buffet.
It is, and you can even attend live events, courses. So if you're looking for a community aspect, that's a great option.
Oh, I like that. I hadn't thought about the community aspect. Now, we also found one called Breathe, which has a really comprehensive approach. It's got meditation, sure, but also music, nature sounds, and they even have master classes on all kinds of spiritual topics.
Right. They're trying to be a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And then there's Aura, which is taking a very high-tech approach using AI.
Oh, yeah?
It learns your mood and preferences and tailors the experience to you. You get personalized meditations, stories, even music curated just for you.
AI and spirituality. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
It is, but I think it speaks to how technology is becoming so integrated into our lives, even our inner lives.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about apps that are bringing mindfulness into everyday life. Because, let's be honest, we're all busy, right?
Absolutely.
So we found two that are addressing that. There's 10% Happier, which has a really practical, down-to-earth approach. Lots of interviews with experts, tips for incorporating mindfulness into your daily routine.
It's like having a mindfulness coach in your pocket.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then there's Simple Habit, which is, if you only have 5 minutes, you can still meditate.
Exactly. It's all about making mindfulness accessible, even if you just have a few minutes to spare here and there.
And they cover things like, stress, sleep.
Right. Targeting those specific needs.
Yeah. Okay, last one for this section. And this one stood out because it really focuses on inclusivity and self-love.
Oh, Shine, right.
Shine, yep.
Yeah. They're all about creating a welcoming space for people from all walks of life, tailoring meditations to specific experiences, really emphasizing self-acceptance.
It's like a warm hug.
It is. And they have a community feature too, so you can connect with others who are, on a similar path.
It's a reminder that, even though it's personal, it's, we're not alone.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot, but we're just getting started.
There's much more to explore.
There is. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll be tackling some of the bigger questions that these apps bring up about the future of spirituality. So stick with us.
Welcome back.
It feels like we covered so much already in part 1.
I know, right? It's amazing how many different approaches there are.
Yeah, and I'm curious to dig a little deeper now, get into some of the bigger questions behind all of this.
Yeah, let's move beyond just the features and think about, what does this all mean? How is this changing the way we think about and practice spirituality?
Okay, so first things first. Technology and spirituality, kind of an interesting pairing, right?
It is, yeah. Do they even go together?
Some people might even say they're at odds.
Right, because you think about it, technology is often seen as, all about the material world.
Right, and spirituality is all about, going beyond that.
Transcending it, exactly.
So it seems kind of counterintuitive to use, these devices that often stress us out to find inner peace.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
It is.
But I actually see a lot of potential there. Technology can make spiritual practices more accessible.
You mean like having guided meditations or ancient texts available on our phones?
Exactly. It's right there at your fingertips.
So in a way, it's removing some of the barriers.
It is. And it's not just about information, though.
What else?
It's also about connection,
Oh, right. Like so many of these apps have social features, right?
They do. So you can share your experiences and connect with other people.
Find support, kind of build a community.
Exactly. So it's not so solitary anymore.
That's interesting because, we often think of spiritual growth as this very individual thing.
Yeah, and I think that's changing.
It's becoming more, more communal in a way.
Definitely. And we're also seeing this rise of personalization, like with Aura's AI.
Yeah, the AI that curates your experience.
Right. It's like a tailor-made spiritual journey.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it, right?
It is. And as AI gets even more advanced, I think we're only going to see even more creative applications in this realm.
It's both exciting and maybe a little bit daunting.
A little bit, yeah.
So what about the downsides?
Well, one concern is that technology could become a crutch.
Like replacing the actual inner work with quick fixes.
Exactly. An app can't do the work for us.
Right. You can't just download enlightenment.
Right. It still takes effort and commitment.
And, isn't there also a risk of becoming, too reliant on technology for guidance?
That's a valid concern. We have to be careful not to just blindly follow what an app tells us.
We need to use our own judgment, too.
Exactly. Be critical thinkers.
Okay, so we need to be mindful consumers of spiritual technology.
Yes, just like with anything else.
Anything else.
And another concern is data privacy, right?
Oh, right.
These apps are collecting information about our beliefs, our practices.
That's personal stuff.
It is. So it's important to choose apps that prioritize privacy.
Look for those security measures.
Absolutely. And then there's also the issue of access. Not everyone has equal access to technology.
That's a good point.
So, it's important to keep that in mind and work towards more digital equity.
So if we're thinking about the future, where is this all headed? The intersection of technology and spirituality, what does that look like?
Ooh, I think we're going to see even more seamless integration.
Like maybe AI-powered retreats.
Exactly.
Or guided meditations that respond to our biofeedback.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. And virtual reality experiences in sacred spaces, things like that.
Wow, that's really interesting.
It's wild. It feels like a whole new world of possibilities.
It is. It's exciting.
Yeah.
But we have to approach it with wisdom and discernment,
With respect for the power of both technology and spirituality.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, we've talked about the not so good, but what about the ethics of all of this?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? We're talking about something very powerful here.
Right, and with power comes responsibility.
Absolutely.
So ethically speaking, what are some of the things we should be thinking about?
Well, I think a big one is the potential for manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
With technology getting so sophisticated, it's possible to create these really immersive experiences that could be used to influence people.
To influence their beliefs, their behaviors.
Exactly, and that's especially concerning in the context of spiritual guidance.
Because people are looking for answers, they're vulnerable.
They are, so we need to be very careful about that.
Imagine an app designed to, push a specific agenda without the user even knowing.
That would be a huge breach of trust.
You would.
So we need safeguards, ethical guidelines for developing and using these technologies.
Transparency, informed consent, things like that.
Exactly. And it's not just about malicious intent either.
What do you mean?
Well, even technology that's created with good intentions can have unintended consequences.
Oh, I see. Like, what if a meditation app ends up promoting social isolation?
Right, the irony.
Right.
So we have to think about the bigger picture.
The social impact, the ethical implications.
Exactly.
So how do we ensure that these technologies are developed and used responsibly? Like, what kind of ethical framework do we need?
That's a big question, but I think putting human well-being first is crucial.
Okay, so prioritizing our well-being.
Yeah, these technologies should empower us, not control us.
What else?
Transparency and accountability are key. Users need to understand how these technologies work.
And what data they collect.
Exactly.
Okay, makes sense.
And we need to make sure these apps are accessible to everyone.
So inclusivity, equity.
Yes, that's crucial.
So it sounds like we need a collaborative effort here. Developers, users, ethicists, policymakers, everyone needs to be involved in this conversation.
Absolutely. We need to be having this conversation now before these technologies become so widespread that it's too late to change course.
That's a good point. And it's clear that, all of this intersection of technology and spirituality, it's both full of potential and also has some serious challenges.
That is, it's a complex landscape.
It is, and we need to navigate it carefully.
With wisdom and compassion.
So for us as individuals, how can we make the most of these apps while staying aware of, the ethical stuff?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll talk about how to use these apps responsibly and effectively to enhance your spiritual journey. All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. I feel like we've really gone deep.
We have, haven't we? Explored all those apps, all the big questions, the possibilities, the concerns.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, so now I want to get practical. Like, okay, we've talked about all this stuff, but how do we actually use these apps to enhance our own spiritual journeys?
Right. How do we move from exploration to integration?
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is, get clear on your intentions. What are you actually hoping to get out of using a spiritual growth app?
Right. Like, are you looking for stress reduction? Or you want to explore different traditions? Do you want to connect with the community?
Exactly. And once you have a sense of your intentions, then you can kind of narrow down the options and find an app that really aligns with your goals.
It's like choosing the right path in a forest, right? You need to know where you want to go.
Exactly. And remember, there's no one right app for everyone.
Right. It's very personal.
Yeah. So try out different ones, experiment, see what resonates with you.
Some might feel right away. Some might take a little more time.
Exactly. And as you're exploring, approach it with curiosity, with openness, but also with discernment.
Discernment. What do you mean by that?
Well, not all apps are created equal, right? Some are more reputable, some are better designed, some might not align with your values.
So do your research, read reviews, and trust your gut feeling.
Exactly. If something feels off, it probably is.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
And, it's important to remember that these apps are tools.
They are. They can be very powerful tools.
But they can't do the work for us.
They can support our growth, but ultimately we have to do the work.
It's like having a fancy set of paintbrushes, right?
Yeah.
They won't create a masterpiece unless you pick them up and start painting.
I love that analogy. So how do we use these apps in a way that really deepens our practice and avoids them becoming just another distraction?
Right, because it's so easy to download an app and then forget about it.
It is. So I think having a clear intention for your app usage can help. For example, if you're using a meditation app, decide beforehand, okay, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes. I'm going to do a loving-kindness meditation.
So you're not just scrolling through, a million options.
Exactly. You go in with a plan.
Okay, what else?
Creating a dedicated space and time for using these apps can be helpful.
Oh, I like that. Like, make it a ritual.
Exactly. Even if it's just for a few minutes each day, create that container for your spiritual practice.
I'm going to try that. And what about, taking what we learn from these apps and applying it to our lives?
That's the key, right? Integration. So if you're practicing mindfulness through an app, try bringing that awareness into your everyday interactions.
So it's not just something you do on your phone, it's something you embody.
Exactly. It becomes a way of life.
This has been such a fascinating conversation, really eye-opening.
It has, and I think we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, it feels like there's so much more to explore.
There is, and new apps are coming out all the time, so the possibilities are really endless.
So stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring.
And remember, the most important journey is the one within. These apps can be wonderful companions along the way, but the true power to transform lies within each of us.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And until next time, may your path be filled with peace, wisdom, and connection.